Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, all. Welcome to Sorup IT Learning Solution. Welcome to the new video series. In this particular video series, we will learn how to install and configure Linux Mint version 22. So, starting from this series, I'm starting something new, which is Linux operating system. Basically, I'm an Windows administrator throughout my career, but I always want to learn the Linux systems. So I haven't got much of a chance, but through this particular YouTube channel, I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to show others also how to configure the Linux systems, what are the different features and all. So it will be a good journey. So stay with me till the end. So we will practically execute following steps in this particular part 1 video. So why part 1? Because the overall when I started this particular topic of Linux Mint, I thought okay, in part 1 it will get covered, but the length of the particular PPT got extended, so I have divided this particular video series in 3 parts. So in the part 1 video, we will be actually covering following steps. So first of all, we will see what introduction to the Linux Mint open source OS distribution. So what is Linux Mint OS distribution? Okay, then we will try to understand Linux Mint OS versions. What are the different versions available and what are their features or differences? And then of course the features of overall Linux Mint version 22. Version 22 is the latest version for Linux Mint. Then in the same video, in the second topic, we will see Linux Mint version 22 OS distribution installation through Hyper-V. So we will be actually installing our Linux Mint version 22 through Hyper-V as a virtual machine. So in that particular part, we will see how to download the latest Linux Mint OS ISO. I will provide you the download link in the description box. Then we'll be actually installing the Linux Mint version 22 OS through Hyper-V. And in the third part, we will see administrating Linux Mint version 22. This will be a longer part which will be getting continued in the part 2 and part 3 also. But in this particular part 1, what we are covering, we will see checking the Linux Mint version after installation, how to check it. Then creating additional admin user apart from the default OEM user in Linux Mint OS. And then enabling username and password prompt for all user accounts. Now why this particular enabling? Because by default Linux Mint is auto logging, means you don't have to enter the password, but that is not a way for a security reason. So we need to enable the username and password prompt for all the user accounts. We will see how to enable those features through Linux Mint. And next is we will be enabling and logging with root account in the Mint Linux. So this is another additional thing. We all know that in the Linux, root is like a Windows administrator account. So by default the root account is not enabled in Linux Mint. So we will try to learn how to enable that root account also, and in case you need to use it for the future purpose. And then the next topic we'll be covering is configuring the session timeout settings, that after how many minutes the screen will get locked. Now these settings might look very easy for you if you are a Windows guy, but through Linux we will see how to configure those ones. I'm starting this particular video series right from the basic to the advanced level. Okay, so let's see. And the last part we will be covering is of course the IP address assignment, how to assign a local IP address so that uh, the machine can access the other machines also if you are having a network. So this will be the topics we will be covering in part 1 video. So let's see. So the first topic is introduction to the Linux Mint distribution. So what is Linux Mint open source distribution? Now As in Windows, we are saying that this is a particular operating system. They are in Linux, they are saying it operating system is okay, but they are saying it a distribution, the source distribution. So the purpose, the Linux Mint is well known for its user-friendly approach, aiming to provide a polished and accessible operating system that appeals to both beginners and advanced users. Okay, so this is the purpose of Linux Mint OS. The power of Linux with an interface that it combines the power of Linux with the interface that is intuitive and elegant, offering features such as, now what are the features for this Linux Mint? So ease of use. Linux Mint emphasizes simplicity, ensuring that users can navigate and manage their systems without a steep learning curve, right? Next is elegance. The interface is designed to be visually appealing while maintaining the functionality. Then stability and performance. Linux Mint is built on a solid base, typically Ubuntu or Debian, providing reliability and efficiency. Now, this particular point, I need to highlight one thing. I have personally tested this Linux Mint operating system through Hyper-V, through virtual machine, and I found it very stable. uh, you are making lots of changes, and to be fair with you, to be frank and straightforward with you, other Linux distributions are not that much stable through Hyper-V. That is my personal experience, I may be wrong, but this Linux Mint is very much on a stable side. Next is wide software support. So it includes a comprehensive suite of pre-installed software and offers easy access to additional applications. And then community and documentation. So with an active community and extensive documentation, users can easily find support and guidance. So these are the basic features of your Linux Mint OS distribution. So next part is, what is Linux Mint open source distribution? So the success of Linux Mint can be attributed to several key factors. So what are the key factors for Linux Mint? So out-of-box functionality, it includes full multimedia support, eliminating the need of additional configurations or installations, and is designed to be extremely user-friendly. We will see how user-friendly it is in the practical mode. So free and open source. So Linux Mint is available at no cost and is open source, allowing users to freely use, modify, and share it with other guys. So this is a most popular point of any Linux open source distribution, that it is a free of use. So you don't have to pay any license cost. Next is community driven. So the project actively encourages feedback and suggestions from its users, which helps shape its development and ensure it meets community needs. Next is rich software ecosystem. So built on Debian and Ubuntu base, so Linux Mint provides access to approximately 30,000 software packages supported by one of the best software management tools in Linux ecosystem. So safety and reliability. Its conservative approach to software updates, unique update manager, and inherent security of Linux architecture make it a trustworthy operating system. So it is for the safety and reliability. Next is low maintenance. Linux Mint is designed to minimize the maintenance requirements with no need for antivirus or anti-spyware tools, and it avoids system regression. So this is one point I need to highlight over here. Basically, when I started this particular Linux Mint series, through preparation, uh, I was planning to include one point as how to install antivirus on a particular Linux system. So I was searching for the documents which can help me out to install, let's say, Symantec endpoint protection client on Linux. But when I'm going through those searching documents and all, I found it the Linux OS distribution is actually a more secure operating system, so it doesn't require any particular antivirus, dedicated antivirus as such. So I have washed out that particular point for that uh, purpose. So we will be not requiring any particular antivirus as such. So this combination of usability, community involvement, and technical reliability has made Linux Mint a popular choice among both new and experienced Linux users. Okay. So continuing on the introduction and theoretical part. So what are the different flavors or versions, you may call it, available for Linux Mint operating system? So in Windows we are calling it as versions. In Linux they are calling it as flavors. Meaning is same. So the latest version of Linux Mint, that is 22, is having three flavors versions available depending on user preference and requirements. Now, what are these three flavors or versions? So the first one is a cinnamon edition of Linux Mint, is indeed the most popular version and is known for its user-friendly interface, modern design, and a good balance of performance and functionality. So it is developed primarily by the Linux Mint team with contributions from the community. So this is the particular edition which we will be learning because it is the most feature wise and stability wise, it is the most usable one. So Cinnamon offers a traditional desktop experience that is visually appealing and intuitive, making it an excellent choice of users transition from other operating systems like Windows, like us. So some of its key features include modern sleek design. So Cinnamon offers a polished, attractive interface with a customizable panel, applets, and displays. Now these applets and displays are Linux terms. If you are to the Windows, it's just like your applications or the desktop environments. Then user-friendly experience. So it includes a familiar start menu and system settings that make it easy to navigate for both new and experienced users. Now, for this particular point, I do agree with this sentence or statement. As I said in the beginning, I'm a Windows guy. So when I started with the Linux, for the other flavors or for the more complicated versions, I struggle even to how to enable the desktop, how to click on start, how to get a particular option and all. But for this Linux Mint, they have given a simple desktop environment and as much as compatible with the Windows guys also can work and find a particular option from the operating system, Linux or Mint operating system. So we will see practically when we are starting the practicals, we will see how much helpful it is, and you will be like agreeing with my particular opinion that it is very user friendly. Next is advanced features. So features like the Windows timing manager, effects, and flexible work space system contribute to both productivity and aesthetics. And then of course the most important one, performance. So despite its eye-catching interface, Cinnamon is optimized for speed and efficiency, making it suitable for both modern and older hardware. Okay. So continuing on the Linux Mint versions part. So what are the different flavors or versions available of Linux Mint operating system? So we have seen the first edition or the first version, Cinnamon. Now second version is X-Face edition of Linux Mint, is known for being a lightweight and resource efficient desktop environment, making it a great choice for older hardware or systems with limited resources. So it is somewhat on a lighter mode. So while it may not have as many built-in features or advanced functionalities as environments like Cinnamon. Xface offers a simple, user-friendly experience that can be customized with various plugins and tools. So for Windows guy, I'm just explaining, it's just like an Windows 11 Enterprise version or Windows 10 Enterprise version and Windows 10 Home version. So Home version is like for the basic users who wants to basic features to use. Enterprise is like for more advanced users. So similarly, you can compare these two editions, Cinnamon and Xface, in a same way. Okay. Now the third version, the Met edition of Linux Mint, is indeed a continuation of Genome 2 desktop environment designed to maintain the familiar and traditional desktop experience that many users appreciated. After Genome 3 was released in 2011 with a new user interface and design philosophy, many users preferred the older Genome style, so leading to the creation of the Met as a fork. Now, as we all know, some users are very much fond or very much attached with the older desktop technologies. They are very much comfortable with it. So, having targeting that particular audience, the Met edition has been introduced for the Linux Mint. So, the Met provides a simple, easy to use, and lightweight desktop environment with features like a traditional panel, application menu, and a workspace switcher, making it ideal for users who appreciate a classic desktop experience. So it has since become a popular in various Linux distributions, including Linux Mint, which continues to use Met as one of its default desktop options. So this is the description for the Met edition. Continuing on the Linux Mint OS distribution. So what are the new features in Linux Mint 22? I'm talking about overall, including all the versions. So Linux Mint 22 introduces significant updates to enhance performance, compatibility, and usability. Here is a constant summary of the key features. Modern components and base. So based on Ubuntu 24.04 package base. So the Linux Mint 22 operating system is based on Ubuntu 24.04 package base. Next is your kernel is upgraded to version 6.8 for better hardware compatibility. So it is supporting more hardware, components. Next is future 22.x releases will follow the HWE, that is hardware enablement series. So if let's say tomorrow version 22.1 will come, 22.2 will come, all those versions will follow the HWE standards. Then the next feature is audio enhancements. So default sound savers switch to Pipewire, improving audio quality and compatibility. Next is software sources. So added support for the Debian Deb 822 format. Then visual and theming updates. So updated themes to fully support GTK4. Then HIDPI support for improvements in Plymouth and Slick Gritter and the boot sequence. And the last update is for the application updates. So Pix added JXL, GPEG support with a new thumbnail. So your GPG files, that is your picture files, are more on a latest version support. So these are the new features for the Linux Mint. And the last one is migration of software from libsoap 2 to libsoap 3 for improved web features. Okay, so this covers your theoretical part. Now let's move on to the practical parts now. As I said, in my Swaroop IT solutions, you will be getting the theoretical concepts also at the start of the video. So have patience to understand what we are actually learning. How we are learning is important, but what we are learning and why we are learning is equally important, or sometimes more important. So I'm always covering the theoretical concepts or theoretical part first, and then we will be moving on to the practicals. Of course, most of the IT engineers love practical parts more, but I'm preferring to give the theoretical concept first. Okay, so this step number one. Open Hyper-V Manager console on Windows 2022 base system, Hyper-V host, and right click on the server host name and say new virtual machine. So this is a very basic step. We'll go back to my main machine. I'm opening the Hyper-V console over here. Right click new virtual machine. Since we are creating a new virtual machine for Linux Mint. Next part is of course on before you begin window. Click next. So this is just an introduction. The next part is on specify name and location window, provide virtual machine name and appropriate virtual machine storing location and click next. So here I'm just giving the name as this because we are installing the Linux Mint version 22. Store, I'm selecting the alternatives particular location in the VM's my J drive, my partition. What I'm doing is I have just created this particular Linux Mint folder, already created that Linux Mint folder. So I'm just selecting this particular folder, nothing inside it. It will create the folder structure once we are actually creating this virtual machine. So select the folder Linux Mint, okay, and I will say next. So next step is on specify generation window, select generation 1 and click next. One important point I need to mention over here, if you are installing a Linux operating system, any distribution, you need to select the generation 1 through Hyper-V. I don't know why it is not supporting the generation 2. Maybe because generation 2 is only meant for Windows operating systems as such. But if you are selecting generation 2, your operating system, that ISO will not boot. That is what my experience is. So I'm selecting generation 1. So next. So next is on assign memory window, assign appropriate memory to your virtual machine, 64 GB, and click next. Why I'm giving this much memory to my Linux Mint system? Because in the upcoming practicals I want to create a virtual machine inside my Linux Mint. So I will be using it as a virtualization operating system. So it should have the inside operating system should have enough memory. So the base operating system in this case is Linux Mint, although it is also a virtual machine, but it is a base operating system. So it requires that many capabilities to support the virtual machine inside it. So I'm just making it 64 GB. For your lab setup, you may choose whatever appropriate for your lab setup. So I'm just making it as 64 GB. Let me just recheck. 65,536. Yes, 65,536. I'm saying next. Okay. So next is on configure networking window, assign network adapter as internal and click next. So I have created the two network adapters through my Hyper-V manager. One is internal, that is your LAN, and one is external for the internet access. So how to create those external and internal network adapters through Hyper-V manager switch and other things I have explained in my previous video for Hyper-V nested virtualization. So you can refer to that video. As of now, I'm just selecting the internal one. Okay, and I will say next. So next step is on create a virtual hard disk, specify appropriate VHD size, and click next. So here I'm just specifying as 100 GB. You may choose whatever you want to, but 100 GB is as of now sufficient. And you need to reconfirm the location. It should be the external partition what we have selected earlier. So this is fine. I will say next. On installation options, select install an operating system later and click next. So as of now, I'm not giving any ISO path as such. You can give if you want to, but I will give later on. So I will say next. Next is verify the summary and click finish. So this is the summary of what we have created. The name of the virtual machine Linux Mint 22 generation 1, because it is compatible, the Linux operating system through Hyper-V is compatible with generation 1 only. Memory 64 GB, network adapter internal, that is LAN, then hard disk path, and then operating system will be later installed. Okay, so I will say finish. Okay. So now next step is we need to map our ISO. So double click on the newly created Linux Mint virtual machine and click on the file settings. So I will double click on it. I will say file settings. You can go through the Hyper-V manager console also if you want to. That's fine. So next is on DVD drive window. Select the image file and map Linux Mint 22 ISO 64-bit ISO and click apply. Okay. So I will go to my IDE controller. There is a DVD drive. Currently no ISO mapped. I will say image file, browse, and I will go to the image file for Linux Mint. So you can see Linux Mint 22 cinnamon 64-bit ISO. This ISO I need to map. So I will double click on it. I will say apply. Right. Next is still on the VM settings window. Click on firmware and set the first boot order as CD drive. Okay. So you can see in the BIOS, you can see there is a CD already in the first place. So you don't need to change. But in case if it is on a downside, so you need to make it move up to the first device so that it can boot from the ISO. Now difference between generation 1 and generation 2 is in the generation 2, this option called firmware, and there will be a DVD option. But in generation 1, this will be BIOS and option is CD. More or less, it means the same, but I'm just giving you the difference. So now I will say OK. So next step is start the Linux Mint virtual machine. So of course now we are starting the actual installation of our Linux Mint. I'm starting it. It should boot from my ISO. So you can see it is booting, and this is the main menu over here, right? So next step is select OEM install for manufacturers option and hit enter. So there are different options available over here. You can directly start the live Linux Mint session. You can start with the compatibility mode, then hardware detection, then boot from the local drive if you don't want to boot from this ISO, and the memory test and all. As of now, we need to select the OEM install because we want to install the operating system as a fresh from the scratch. I'm selected this option and just hitting enter. OEM install for manufacturers. So now it is actually starting the actual installation. By the time it is booting, let's see what will be our next step through PPT. So select the operating system language as English and click continue. So now, as of now, it is still booting. It will take a minute or so because this is the first time it is booting. Yes, and now you can see it is asking us to select the installation or the operating system language. So English is fine for us. I will say continue. Next step is of course the keyboard layout language. So we'll be selecting that also as an English, and I will say continue. It's a simple installation. If you are familiar with the Windows installation, you will be easily doing it without any assistance. Next step is on multimedia codec screen, don't select anything and click continue. So here we don't want to install any multimedia codes as of now, so I will not select this option. And if you are selecting this option, let's say your this particular system Linux Mint should be connected to internet because it will download those packages from internet. So make sure if you want to select this option and then continue. Next option is on installation type screen. Select a default option, erase the disk and install Linux Mint and click next. Click install now. So of course we need to erase this particular disk. There is nothing inside it and we need to install it as a fresh operating system. So I'm selecting this option and I will say install now. So again it will give some warnings. So click continue on write changes to disk confirmation page. So of course if you continue changes for the disk, it will be overwritten or it will format, in other words, in Windows words. So I don't have any data as such, so I will say continue. So next step is select your region and click continue. So I'm selecting my region over here and say continue. Next option is very important to understand. Change your system host name and enter your OEM super user account password and click continue. Now, for in order to work the operating system after the first boot, you require at least one account, that we all know. In Windows server operating systems, they are enabling the administrator account by default. So you can specify the administrator account at the time of installation only. I'm talking about Windows Server operating system. For Windows client operating systems, by default administrator, local administrator account is disabled, and they are asking us to create another account, additional account at the time of installation. That is Windows client operating system. Now here the concept is very much different. They are creating one temporary user. You can see over here it is written temporary user called OEM, right? And they are asking us to enter the password for this OEM. So that we will do. After that, we will create another admin user and we will enable the root user also. That is like a local administrator account in Windows. So there are three different types of user accounts over here. Don't get confused with it. OEM is a temporary user just to log on with the operating system after the fresh installation. Then additional admin as per your user requirement and the default root. So those three are different what do you say account, but they may have the same rights. Root is a super level of user. OEM is a super user and the second admin will be super user. So as of now I'm just changing the host name over here. So this is a good useful feature in Windows. You don't find that you can able to change the host name while the operating system installation. You can change it later on, but here it is giving us option. So let's change it. I've just given this one. You can give anything what you want, and I'm just giving the OEM password, OEM user password. This is a normal user password for the first time boot, but remember it will not ask us for that password. So by default it will auto log on, but we will see how to enable that option and all. So this password I have given, I will say continue. I want to explain you guys as much as possible uh, through your familiar options like Windows. That's why I'm just giving the reference of Windows operating systems, because most of the IT engineers or system administrators are well familiar with the Windows. So anyways, so now you can see the OEM mode is installing and it is starting installing your operating systems, right? Just adjusting it. So we need to now monitor the Linux Mint OS installation. So it will start. It will take some 10-15 minutes. So I'm pausing this video as of now. Once this is completed, I will come back with the next step. So now you can see the installation is completed for Linux Mint operating system. So it is giving us the confirmation window, installation complete. You need to restart your computer in order to use the new installation. So I will say, let's go back to our PPT. So click on restart now once Linux Mint operating system installation is completed. Okay, so I will say restart now. Now this is a kind of an additional prompt. It is asking us to remove the installation medium or the ISO. I don't think it is required because it will automatically remove from the CD. But let's see. So remove your Linux Mint CD ISO from your VM settings if required and hit enter within the VM session to complete the operating system installation. So why this particular prompt is there, because sometimes even if your CD is still on a booting preference, so it will again boot from the CD, it will go into that loop. But with the modern operating systems are getting more intelligent, I think it will eject automatically. Let's see. If it is not ejecting, then we will remove it manually. But let's see what is happening. I'm just putting enter. So now it is booting through our operating system, I guess. Yes. So I have not removed it manually. That's fine. And now you can see the first screen has come. I will just maximize it. This is the introduction part of Welcome to Linux Mint. Every time it will show in the startup one. So you can click on Let's Go. Let's see. And then first steps, desktop color, system snap. All those settings you can define as of now. But as of now, we don't required to do anything. So I'm just closing this window. Now this is your Linux Mint desktop. This is your Linux Mint operating systems session of OEM user, and this is the network part. Since we have not defined any IP address, it will give us a pop-up, so that's fine. Now you may have observed that it has not asked us for the password for the OEM also, right? It has directly auto log on. So it is a kind of a thing we don't want. So let's move on to our next step. So step number 24 is, once Linux Mint VM restarts, verify the OS welcome screen and close the window that we have already done. Now next note is we have observed that the Linux Mint operating system is auto logging with the default super user OEM account, right? This is also I have just mentioned. So we will add additional accounts and configure the password logging prompt options in upcoming steps. Now we need to do the two steps. We need to create a new user as a new admin, our own user, and we need to enable our root account also. And then the final step will be enable the password option for all the accounts. So let's see. The next step is first of all through Linux Mint desktop, open the terminal window and type the command as host name ctl. This is the basic command just to check the version. Okay. So next step will be note down the Linux Mint operating system configuration. So we will see now. Most of you must have been knowing that Linux operating systems are mainly working on command environments, not like GUI, because it has given the GUI options also. Many GUI options or much more options than any Linux operating system I have worked earlier. But anyways, it's still on terminal. So host name CTL. If I'm entering it, it will give me just like your system info option in window. It is giving me the operating system environment and all. So the static host name for our operating system we have defined through installation Linux Mint 22. Icon name is something like a general name. Then machine ID will be this, boot ID, virtualization. Now it is detecting that this particular Linux Mint is running on a virtualization platform, that is Microsoft Hyper-V, and operating system is our Linux Mint. So this is very intelligent. Then kernel version, and then architecture is 64-bit. Then hardware vendor is Microsoft Corporation because it is running on Hyper-V. Hardware model is virtual machine. So this is important. Our operating system itself knows that it is running as a virtual machine. And then firmware date, and then firmware age. So from now today on onwards, it is still my firmware age will be 6 years, 1 month, 1 week, and right, and the other options are there. Okay, so this is a useful command I found, that's why I have included in our PPT. Okay, let's close this. Next step. So next step is through Linux Mint desktop start menu, type users in search box and click on users and groups. Now as I said, we need to create additional users. So this is a start menu just like Windows, and in the search box this is a very useful option. In the search I will type users and there is an option called users and groups. So I will click on that. So it will ask me to authenticate, right? Now this is a kind of an additional features with Linux I have just found, because in Windows once you logged in with the administrator you don't need to enter the password again and again, but in Linux somehow they have included these features. Anyways, so enter the default OEM account password and click authenticate. So I'm just entering the OEM password which we have given during the installation. I will say authenticate. So it is showing us the OEM, that is our default temporary user which have been created by the time of installation, and you can see account type is administrator. So this is the only user as of now in this operating system. So we will create additional user. So on users and groups window, click on add. So I will click on add and it will ask me the account type and all. So we'll see what option we need to select. So on account addition window, select following options. So account type will be administrator, and full name will be Linux Mint, and username will be Linux admin. right? So since we need to create additional account with the administrative privileges, so I will select the administrator, and full name will be anything you want, but I am just giving Linux Mint. Username Linux admin, right? This will be your show off or the outer name of your account, and this will be your actual user name, right? And finally I will say add, right? So we have created a simple user with the administrator account privileges Linux Mint, right? Now one thing I need to highlight over here, why they have given this particular account type name as administrator, because as I said, most of the IT engineers are familiar with the Windows environment. So in Windows, the topmost account is administrator. If they have given this particular name as super user or something else, then you might get confused that okay, super user is super user, but what are the privileges it will hold? It will hold the topmost privileges or something less or something else. So to avoid all that confusion, they have just given the same name as administrator. This is what I feel. So we have already clicked add on that. Okay. So next step is back to the users and groups window. Click on Linux Mint account and click on password option, which is showing no password set, right? So there is an option called password, and it is showing that we have not set the password yet for Linux Mint. We have set the password for OEM during the installation, but we have just created this account with the no password. Okay, so I will click on that, and it will ask me to assign the new password, of course. So assign password for newly created Linux admin account. So I'm just assigning the password for Linux admin, right? Try to give a different password for your OEM as well as for your Linux admin, because those are two different operating accounts. So now we have given the password for Linux Mint also, right? Now if I'm restarting this machine, it will auto log on either with the OEM or Linux Mint. So we don't want, we need a password prompt for that one. So we will see how to enable this. So close users and groups window. Once assigned, this is done. So we close this. Next is through Linux Mint desktop, again start menu, through search box option, type login and login window. So what I'm doing is going to start and just typing login. That will be a short form. I'm clicking the login window option. Okay, again it is asking for our OEM password, so let's see. So if prompted, enter your OEM default super user account password and click authenticate. So of course authenticate. So now it will open the login window interface. It is giving us, this is somehow what I don't like. It is giving us pop-ups again and again for network, unless you are specifying a connectivity or a static IP address as such, right? So many pop-ups are there. So I will close this, and this is also update manager. Uh, it has detected that our operating system is not updated with the latest update. So again, it will give us these pop-ups. We will do it later on. So I'll close this one also. Coming back to the login window. So next is on login window, users enable option allow manual login. So first option we need to select is go to the users tab and allow manual login, which is disabled by default, as I said. So what does this mean? Allow manual login is disabled means it will auto login. That is not a recommended way. So I will first of all enable this option, allow manual login. Next is remove OEM account name from the automatic login option. So what I'm doing is I'm just removing this particular username from the automatic login. Okay, this thing. So these settings require a computer reboot to take effect. That's fine. Now one thing I need to clear over here, once you're removing the OEM, so by default the OEM is auto logging. Once you remove the OEM, it will start prompting you password for all the accounts whichever you have created, right? So no need to remove all the usernames because there is no option as such, but you need to remove only the OEM and that will do. Okay, so this is done, and close login window and restart the Linux Mint system once. So I will close this one and I will restart now. There is one power button and I will say restart. Okay, so the system will reboot now, and after the reboot we will see that it will ask for the password, of course. So now you can see it is asking us for the password. Now we don't require to put the username over here because it is already showing over here. But anyways, you can put the username also over here, that's not a problem. But as of now, I'm just clicking on Linux Mint, which we have just created, right? If you remember. So next step is, once restarted, log in to your Mint Linux system with Linux Mint account with password, right? So I'm just putting my Linux Mint password, and now you can see I have logged in with the Linux admin account, which we have created as an additional administrator, and this will be the account we'll be using throughout our video series. Okay, so again it is giving us the welcome screen and all, so I will just disable it, just like a server manager in Windows. So that's fine. I'm closing this. So we have logged in with the Linux admin account. So this is how we have completed our uh, one part of creating the account and then enabling it for the password prompt. Now next step is, through Linux Mint Linux admin user session terminal, run following command sudo -i. Now we need to enable the root account, right? Root account should also be enabled if you want to perform certain activities with the root privileges. That is like a local administrator account in Windows. By default, it is not enabled, so we will enable it. So in the terminal window, we need to first log in with the sudo I this thing. So I'll go to the terminal and I will say, now you can see over here we have currently logged in with the Linux admin account. Terminal session I'm talking about, desktop also, but terminal session it is showing Linux Mint, right? What I'm doing is I'm just putting sudo -i. Sorry, there should be a space. Now sudo password for Linux admin, it is asking us for the Linux admin password, so I'm putting it. And now you can see the login prompt has been changed to the root. Now, this is one way to log in with the root account in your terminal, right? Sudo space -i, right? So this is the first command what we have learned for the Linux Mint. Although this is the same account for other Linux distributions also. Now we have already given the Linux admin password, and then you have logged in terminal with root session. You may continue running terminal session and commands with the root privileges. This is the one way of logging with the terminal session with the root account. This I want to show. Next step is type exit to log out from root terminal session and fall back to Linux admin user terminal session. Since we don't require any particular command to run through Linux admin, I just wanted to show you. So we will see exit. So it will not exit the terminal session. So you can see it is logged out from our root session, right? Try to understand. The architecture is a bit different than Windows, but it is a simple to use. So again, we are coming back to the Linux admin account. Now, if I'm typing exit, it will come out of our terminal session also. Let's see what will be our next step. So again, next step is we need to now define the root password. So through terminal, run the following command: sudo -i, of course. Then I will add this. So again, I've logged in with the root account. Now I've just shown you how to log in with the root session, but we have not defined any password as such for the root account. I need to assign the password for root account also, and it is very important. So what will be our command for this? So the command for resetting your password. So once logged in through root terminal session, type pass wd and hit enter. So this is the pass wd, sorry, wd, enter. So it is asking us to assign a new password for the root session. Again, I am explaining sudo -i, or sudo -i to log in with the root account, and then resetting the password for root. So I'm just resetting the password, new password. So you can see the password updated successfully for root account. Okay, because we have logged in with the root account. So I will say exit, it will log out from the root account. So next is once prompted, enter the new root password that we have already given twice to set it, right? And then type exit to log out from root terminal session and restart the Linux Mint operating system once. So this is also done. Now there are two ways how to reboot this machine. I can reboot it through this option also, and let's see through command whether this option will work or not. I think sudo / reboot. It is not running. Let's see what will be the command. Sorry, I forgot it. Let's see if it is working for sudo reboot. Yes, so there was no hyphen as such in between. Now it is restarting our Linux Mint. Next step is once restarted, on a GUI login window, click on login. So you can see it is still not showing the root account. It is showing the Linux Mint or OEM, right? We need to click on login, and here it is giving us to manually input the username, right? So we'll put the root username over here. So enter the username as root and hit enter. So the username as root and enter, and then it is asking us for the password. So enter the root password which you have set in the earlier step and hit enter. So I'm just putting the password over here, and now you can see we have logged in through root account also. So we have logged in through 3 different accounts till now. First, default OEM, and then second, Linux admin, which we have created as an additional administrator, and third is a default administrator, which is disabled, but we have enabled it. We have assigned the password also, and that is root account, right? So we have logged in with the third account now. Okay, so this is how you can manage your users and all. But so this is the interesting way I found how to enable the root account for Linux Mint. So we have completed this also. Now next step is through Linux Mint Linux admin session, desktop start menu, type screen in search box and click on screensaver. Now we have logged in with the, first of all we need to log off because we have logged in with the root. So I will restart it. We don't require to use root. Avoid using root as much as possible. And now I will go to the Linux admin again. This is the user which we will be using. So this is our Linux admin session. Now through start menu, I will just type screen. It is giving us option as screensaver. By default, the delay before starting the screensaver is 15 minutes. I will change it to 10 minutes. Right. So after the delay blocking, that is 10 minutes, lock immediately. This option is selected. Right. This is a small setting, but a very useful setting as such. Okay. Now I will close this one. So through screensaver settings, adjust your preferable session timing through delay before starting screensaver option. So if you are not doing anything for let's say 10 minutes, it will automatically lock your session. Right? This is a useful feature which is in Windows also. So close the screensaver settings windows that we have already done. Next step is now through Mint Linux, a desktop start menu, search box, type network and open network menu. So now you can see these pop-ups are really making me angry. So let's stop these all those pop-ups by assigning a simple static IP to our network adapter. So I will go to start and I will type network and you can click on network menu. Okay. Our next option is through network menu, enable the wired connection and click on settings icon. Right. So this is already enabled. Right. If I am disabling it, it will not give me the pop-up, but we don't require that. So I'll click on the settings menu over here. You can see over here, these are the different settings for our LAN network, that is our wired network. The internal one which we have defined, you can see over here, uh, the network adapter is internal. This is what it is detecting inside our virtual machine. So this is your wired network. Now next step is we need to assign the static IP, right? So through network wired connection settings window, select following options: connectivity IP version 4, right? And address will be manual, and address will be defining as 10.1.1.142. That is my any manual IP. You can define whatever you want, and then net mask will be 255.0.0.0, right? So I will go to here, and here IP4 is there. Address over here, it is automatically taking it as DSCP, so I will make it manual, right? And I will type this address 10.1.1.142, right? Net mask, unlike Windows, it is not auto detecting your IP address and net mask. So I'm just putting it as manual 0.0, right? You don't require any gateway, but in your production network, if you want, you can give the gateway and then the DNS servers and other factors also, then your router address and all these things. But as of now, this is sufficient for us. So click apply. I will say apply, right? So now you can see it is showing us as connection established because we have given the manual IP. Now coming back to the network wired connection settings window, select following options: connectivity as IP6 and disable your IP6 usage. So I'm coming back to the wired and then setting options, and through IP6, this is, we don't require as of now. Again, it will give us the pop-ups for this is not connected, that is not connected. I'm disabling it. Okay, I will say apply. So we have given IP4 manual IP and we have disabled the IP6. So this completes our part 1 video. Now what we'll be covering in the upcoming part 2 of Administering Linux Mint 22 series. So we will cover following topics. We will be updating our Linux Mint 22 operating system with the latest updates and package upgrades. So as we know, the Windows operating system updates are very important, same as for the Linux also. So we will be updating our Linux Mint 22 OS with the latest updates. Next, we will be learning that how to configure some of the keyboard shortcuts through Linux Mint. Now I'm very fond of keyboard shortcuts. Let's say I want to shut down or restart my system, my hand is automatically going to the Alt F4 combination. In Windows I'm talking about, but in Linux Mint that is not available. So how to define your own keyboard shortcuts in Linux Mint? So we will try to learn that option in the next part 2 video. Next is we will see Windows share access through Linux Mint OS. How to access your Windows share through your Linux operating system. If you want to copy something, if you want to get some additional softwares or ISOs, mapping ISOs and all. So we need to access the Windows share. In a production environment, if you are having a mixed environment like Windows and Linux, and if you want to share the files, of course you need to uh, uh, establish the connectivity. So we will try to learn how to access the Windows share through your Linux Mint operating system. So that option we will cover in the next part 2 video. Okay. So thank you very much for your time for watching this particular video. This is your host from the Swarup IT Solutions. If you like this particular video, please share among with your colleagues and please do subscribe to my channel if not done. Thank you very much. Have a good day.